Desperation to get a slice from India's growth story.
Nobody in the West is going to let India rise up and become a global power.
Desperation to protect oneself.
Washington wants full domination of the globe, American hegemony.
And desperation to maintain the so-called friendship with a nation that is destined to re-emerge as a superpower can make any country behave in a strange way. And yes, if the Russian media, I mean the Russian bear that used to look like this, is now all of a sudden, in relation to India, starting to look a bit like this, probably there is nothing that is impossible. But how and why did this transformation take place? To understand that, let's explore how India is shown in the Russian media today and how India was frequently shown in the Russian media several years before. Yes, today it seems that Russia loves India, the Russian media loves India, and for many Russians, India is their special friend. For example, take a look at this. RT, the Russian TV channel that is publicly financed from the budget of the Russian Federation, is doing for India what probably many Indian media outlets fail to do. Yes, RT is trying to counter the anti-India propaganda, anti-India narrative, and it is doing it in a way that many could never imagine. Dedicated campaigns to challenge the Western stereotypes of India, asking crucial questions, advertising in Indian newspapers, at bus stops, and even on cabs. Yes, in India, a Russian campaign using more than 10,000 cabs across 12 cities. Asking questions like, why does the West still see India as a third world country? Should Europe's problems be India's problems? Why won't Britain return the Kohinoor diamond? Not only that, but there are also multiple articles popping up in Russian media that do not negatively stereotype India and instead attempt to expose the West's hypocrisy. And not to forget, the Russian ambassador to India posts this, explaining in Hindi the importance of yoga, describing it as a precious treasure given by India to the world. Well, no matter what the reasons or the intentions are behind all this, many Indians won't mind seeing Russians doing this for them. For now, it seems that there is at least one country, if not more, whose media is doing what should have been done a long time ago. But did these Russians always talk about India like this? Did Russian media always have this attitude towards India? Well, the answer is no. Yes, several years ago, when the same Russian media outlet was publishing articles and content that was stereotyping India, how about them? Want to know what I'm talking about? Take a look at this. And this. And this. And more. In particular, the Russian media coverage regarding the twisted Western narrative that shows India as the most dangerous country for women was not helpful at all. On numerous occasions, Russian media outlets failed to analyze it properly and ended up solidifying this twisted narrative about India even more. Yes, back in those days, the other subjects that Russians would pounce on were about the Indian caste system, the so-called untouchables, and the so-called low-caste people. And they would often do it without showing a genuine intention to understand the subject properly. And yes, while doing all this, did Russians also expose the Christian caste system of Europe and the Christian untouchables of France the way I did? Well, you have the answer. As a result, on numerous occasions, Russian media also ended up stereotyping India negatively, just the way it is done by the media of the Western colonial criminal states. Articles after articles. You can explore or visit these pages as long as they are still available. Now, dear Russians, will you come forward and publish the counter viewpoint about all these subjects related to India? How about busting the negative stereotypes about India that you created or solidified? How about challenging the Russian stereotypes about India one at a time? How about revisiting and correcting your own past work by publishing new content on the same subjects that go a bit deeper and give more balanced information? And please, don't just do it in English, do it in other languages too, especially in Russian. Dear Russians, today you may be praising or supporting India for your geopolitical interests in a way that you have never done before, especially when the collective West has surrounded you from all sides and you desperately need help. But remember, Indians may forgive one easily, but they don't easily forget. Yes, Indians won't forget the help from Moscow during the India-Pakistan war, but then, on the other hand, Indians cannot forget how Russia, once upon a time, was trying to conquer a weak, colonized India. As described by Boris Egorov, who is a historian, in the early 19th century, Russia was keen to forcibly grab India from British control. It was only the assassination of Russian Emperor Paul I that obstructed the plan. Yes, read this carefully. More than 22,000 Cossacks, led by Ataman Matvei Platov, on an unprecedented campaign through Central Asia and Afghanistan to India. The plans they made were quite horrifying for the people of Bharat. As mentioned here, after crushing the East India Company, the arrangement was that the French would consolidate the southern part of the peninsula, while the Russians would set up shop in the north of Bharat. However, the invasion was fated never to take place. Paul I suddenly left the world, and Bharat didn't have to face all this. So, dear Russians, do you want Indians to completely forget your dirty colonial plans against them? Yes, Indians are thankful to you for your help and support that you extended on numerous occasions, even though your intention to help India may have been purely geopolitical. But then, on the other hand, Indians also remember that there was a time when the Soviet Union was actively looking to influence India's socio-political landscape, even though that was compromising India's sovereignty. I explained that in this video. Now, the times have changed. Facing a big crisis in Ukraine and understanding that India is reclaiming its superpower status, Russia is even more desperate to have India on its side. And, dear Russians, perhaps your media has a lot to do when it comes to correcting India's image in Russia. Because there are many Russians who need to improve their understanding regarding what India is, what Indian culture is, and what yoga is. For example, there were multiple reports in the international media explaining the Russian politician Yelena Mizulina's strange views about yoga. And yes, it was also reported how officials in the central Russian city of Nizhnevartovsk banned yoga because they thought that it is an evil cult. So, before I sign off, I want to say this. Yes, the ties between India and Russia are crucial for both sides and for the world. But please, 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 my dear Indians, particularly those who are innocently referring to Russia as Mother Russia, I have a message for you. Remember, terms like true friendship and true friend do not have much value in the constantly changing world of geopolitics, and for the people of India, there is only one mother, and that is Mother India. See you again.